Hi, Kim. What are you doing? Where are you?
I am in beautiful Ohio, and actually, by the time this episode airs, I'll be with you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, it looked housed behind you, not
Yes.
carred or tent or truck stopped. So you have to
Yes, no, I'm definitely not in a truck stop. I am in the home of one of my favorite people on the face of this planet. So I am eating extremely well and yeah, feeling very civilized for the first time in a bit.
you really pulled your shit together for this episode.
I did pull my shit together. Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's why I love this podcast is that I get to express myself in the way that we normally do.
Yeah. Who do
Yeah.
we have with us today, Kimothy? You want to tell us all about Kelly?
Yes, and Kelly has been a bit of a life changer for this old broad because she, in all transparency and disclosure, is my business coach. And specifically, when I decided to do things like YouTube channels and podcasting, uh, she doesn't have to be polite about it. I was a mess, didn't know what I was doing. As I always tell Amy, I think I need an assistant instead of learning how to do this myself. But yeah, Kellyanne Riley is well known in our hometown of Ottawa as helping people change, which I don't have as much change agility as I would like to have. And she has helped me do that. And she is a business leader in her own right, but helps businesses get their shit together. Isn't that right, Kel? Isn't that what you do? And you can make fun of me and how I've been a struggle for you over the last many, many months.
Well, I want to say you have definitely not been a struggle at all whatsoever. I think this has been pretty amazing to go through this journey with you as somebody who, wasn't, I mean, you knew what you were doing, you knew what you were pivoting into, but it's a different thing to know what you want to do and actually start doing it and just embody it, right? And I feel like you're at the place in your journey where you're starting to embody this whole pivot, this new lifestyle of yours, and it's been a real pleasure to watch.
Oh, thank you. And Amy's going to ask you about the book because I know a lot about the book, but you said the word pivot, which
Mhm.
we find a little funny. Pivot.
Everybody, every time that word comes up, that's what everybody thinks is
Yeah.
friends and the couch going up the stairs, the whole thing. Yeah.
I know. I
Well,
know.
we're really happy to have you, Kellyanne. You and I are new to each other, so it's great to see you here, but it's great to have met you in person just recently as well. And so Timothy's told me that you're an author as well, and I want to know all the goods. Tell us a little bit more about your book. Tell me, what it's about, who we're helping with the book. Give me the goods, would you?
All
Mhm.
right. So the book is called Permission to Pivot Your Path to Purpose. And really, the whole premise behind the book is just helping people walk through what I call the pivot framework and helping them walk through different pivots and changes in their lives, right? I think if there's kind of structure or some kind of guided plan, it makes maybe going through a big pivot in your life a whole lot easier. And so where it came from really is, as I'm here, I'm helping Kimothy pivot from her old life into this new life. I did my own pivot. I did it about a year and a half, almost coming up on 2 years ago, where I had a 1,400 square foot salon. And I just, got to the point where I was burnt out. I was tired. I was stressed out. I was crying. I'm going to be 42 this year and I was having heart palpitations. And I think like that's ridiculous for just such a young person. When this was happening, I wasn't even 40. There's no reason for, somebody of my age to be under that kind of stress, right? Not sleeping, crying all the time. And so for me, I just had to get to a point where I realized that I just don't want to be doing this. This is not aligned for me anymore. All the dreams that I had, in that career path, that was an old version of Kelly, and that version of Kelly isn't aligned with what this current version of Kelly is. And I have to figure out what the new version of Kelly is going to look like. And so yeah, I downsized to 150 square foot space, and even before I even before I did that pivot, I had already been learning and studying coaching. And so it just really gave me the time, the space, the clarity, the freedom to dive into coaching, and help people through the same pivot, the same change that I've been through. So the book is really about that, helping people at least have, like I said, a framework or some steps, something to reference as they're going through all the different steps and phases of a pivot and making a big change in their life. It's scary, right? So sometimes knowing that you have somebody to hold your hand, is really helpful.
And because this is a mental health podcast, uh, what is what is the difficulty? Because I can only speak for me in that once I made up my mind to pivot, but what is the thing that sticks people, do you think, where they stay in a life that just isn't working anymore?
I think it's shifting identities. Like I know for myself, it was, I had spent a lot of time, effort, I'll say money, um, trying to build up a business and build up who I thought I was, right? And identifying with the salon owner. And these were all the things that I was going to do. And like I've been doing hair for about 20, it's going to be 21 years this year, 21 years. So when you spent your whole life doing, a certain career, and you've gone from being the apprentice, right? Like you've gone from being the
Yeah.
apprentice to, I got certified. I started with my own little shop, and then I grew it to 1,400 square feet, and I had X amount of employees, and I had all these other goals. And now to get to a point where I'm just like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. It's kind of like, who are you? Who are you now that you're not doing the thing that you were before? So I think, for me personally, that was a big thing. And I think that is something that's very relatable for a lot of people out there. If they're not doing that thing or being that person they've been up to this point, well, who am I now? Where do I fit in? Right. I think also, there's money issues that people, or money worries that people have. How am I going to afford, if I leave this, how do I afford this new life? There's a fear of disappointing people, I think, societal pressures. Like there's so many different things that I think keep people stuck.
Hmm.
I really thank you for sharing that. I really enjoy the fact that Kimothy's known a couple of our guests, and I've known a couple of them as well, but not as in depth. And
Mm.
so although when we bring guests on, I know, what we're talking about and whatnot, it's not as in depth. So it's like I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, oh man, this was like well aligned for me today. Because I mean, to your point, as we move through our lives and change, um, we just outgrow crap. Like
Mm.
it's just, and I think that
Right.
I'm struggling at the moment, so I might have a call later. But that's the thing, right? Like you grow out of
Mm.
what your identity was
Mhm.
into something else, and you're like, what the hell am I going to do
Yeah.
now? And
Yeah.
it's like you kind of are like trying to hold on to something because it's familiar and everything else is scary.
Right.
um to your point about like all the money issues, the time issues, the like, oh my God, do I have to do this again issues?
Mhm.
All of that is terrifying. And
Yeah.
so one, I'm looking forward to reading your book. And two, I think that it will help a lot of people because I've obviously contemplated this a lot in my life recently. I'm 43, and everybody always talks about like midlife crisis and all this stuff, right? And I think that it's really coined wrong. I think that we're all at a point in our lives in our 40s-ish that we've kind of seen the writing on the wall and we're like, what is this shit and how do I get out of it? And so, and then on top of it, you get into perimenopause and
Yeah.
all your hormones are doing all crazy crap. I'm
Yeah.
a, my daughter is 7, so I'm like an older mom, which a lot of people in our age range tend to be. We
Yeah.
put career first, a lot of us.
Yeah.
Um, and like, I don't think it's a midlife crisis. I think it's just like, I'm tired of this bullshit
Hmm.
and I'm just gonna start doing things that I care about and I don't really need to care about if people like it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is
Absolutely. I want to say, I think that for me, COVID was definitely a catalyst. And I think for a lot of people right now, COVID was definitely a catalyst because
Mm.
you were kind of forced to disconnect from whatever it was that you were doing. And if you weren't forced to disconnect, you were definitely forced to change how you went through your everyday, right? And I
Mhm.
think from what I saw, there was a lot of people, a lot of us who you didn't even know you didn't realize you were as busy as you were. And COVID forced you to slow down. And then when you go back to work, all of a sudden you're just like, you've got all these things to do and you have to kind of get back up to that level of go, 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 do, do, do. And so I think people reached a level of burnout a whole lot more quickly because they had to go from 0 to 60 in a short amount of time. We didn't have the years of build up to get to that level of busy. But I also think it made it really clear to people that I don't want to be this busy or I don't like what I'm doing. I think having that time off, that time to pause really showed people like how disconnected they were. It anchored in or solidified how disconnected they were from whatever it was that they were doing. So I think, there is the whole reaching of the 40s and like, what the heck am I doing? What am I doing this for? I've been doing this for such a long time. And, sometimes it's like you're not you've been doing this for such a long time and why am I not further along? I've been doing this for such a long time. Why am I not enjoying this more? I've been doing this for such a long time. Like there's so many different reasons. And I think we're just kind of getting to a point and we're in an age and stage in life and a time in life, in a time in society where, we're kind of empowered maybe to like go and do
Mhm.
whatever calls to you, right? I don't know if our moms could have done this, get to the 40s and like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. We're in a different stage and we can choose differently for ourselves. So I think a lot of us are just exercising that right and choosing to honor ourselves because we got to live with ourselves. So
I 100% agree with everything that you said. And, certainly as your client, I've gone through these steps with you of the thing that is the inconvenience is how do you pay for your dreams?
yeah, yeah,
And if you don't have the skill set to fit into your dreams, I mean, the two of you have taken me through what I'm sure for the two of you is a very painful process of teaching me these new skills, which, by the way, I think is really good for my brain.
hmm
Right, like after a massive concussion and rewiring and learning new skills and all that kind of stuff that my brain really needs to do. But in the end, we have to pay for our dreams. And whether you're in cohabitation agreement, Amy, uh, or whether you're single, life is expensive and it's about to get more expensive. And so we need to monetize our dreams in some ways. So, can you talk a little bit about that practicality in your coaching and in the book of wouldn't it be nice if we could just all hike around Europe and, eat nice things on patios in Italy, but life gets very real sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I think, as I said earlier, I think that's one of the things that people are really afraid of, right? Like, how do I transition into this new version of self and be able to afford life? But I think when people are talking about or thinking about making a change in their life, the big thing, they're always coming to it from a position of or from a thought process of like the change has to happen immediately. You drop one thing, you're in the next thing, and it's like there's no kind of transition period. They feel like they have to blow up their whole life, get rid of all of this stuff, and then all of a
Oops.
sudden I'm going to step right into
Oops.
this next thing. You know what I mean? But it's like they feel like they have to step into this next thing and everything just has to work out perfectly right here, right now. Well, it's not, I mean, that's not realistic. And I think even if you go back to the beginning of your career, whatever it is that you're pivoting away from, right? It was incremental for you to get to where you are. So to think about that you have to all of a sudden, be further into the process as soon as you make this pivot like it doesn't really make any sense. But I think that's exactly where our mind goes. So for me, in my own personal journey, like I still do hair 3 days a week because until I get my business exactly where I want it to be, where I can coach from literally anywhere that I want to, this is my way of just bridging the gap. And I think if people can just think about it or plan their pivot, their change, where there's a transition process, and you can bridge the gap, it makes it a whole lot easier, right? Like
Mm.
if this is changing a career and you jump into the new career, or you start a new business and you don't like it, guess what? You can always go back to the other thing. Like you always have those skills, right? But people are always afraid of what the other side looks like.
I'm
Amy,
wondering.
she coached me from Barbados, and I was in Florida one time. So, you know, uh, the world no longer means that you have to be in a bricks and mortar in a certain place.
Mhm.
Well, I'm wondering too, like when you were talking about transition and stuff, because I've been guilty of this myself. I wonder if, a lot of us are getting to the point, as we spoke about, where we've done all this work, we're
Mhm.
professionals in our own fields, we've done all this stuff, and minor or large changes, I've been guilty of it, and I'm wondering if others, and let me know kind of from your coaching aspect as well, is like, I feel like a lot of us, we're really good at what we do, and then we want to transition and we expect to be in like intermediate and not a beginner. I did
Mhm.
that with yoga and I hurt myself.
Yeah.
But do you find that? Like it's like I should know how to do this. So I'm gonna jump in real deep and then you're like, "Oh shit. I went in way too deep and now I'm just struggling." Like I said in yoga, I hurt myself and I was like out because I was like, "I should know how to do this." But that's not how life works.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is like, I think when you're younger and you're just starting out, I think we're just more open to the fact that we have to put in efforts to grow and get to the next level, right? Where I think when you've been in a career or you've been in a place for a long time, and yes, you've kind of gotten to the top, like you're no longer a beginner, you're no longer intermediate, right? You know what you're doing, you own it, you almost forget how to be a beginner all over again. But then you almost, like, I want to say there's almost a little bit of resentment maybe for having to start all over again, because like, damn,
Yeah.
having like, God, why do I have to do this again? Why do I have to put in, that the hustle all over again to get started? But when you think about it, that's how you got here in the first place, right? So you don't get to skip that beginner phase when you're starting something new. It's just going to be a little bit different. And I think too, we just have to remind ourselves that we get to carry all of the wisdom, the growth, the knowledge, everything that we have learned in X amount of time from the previous journey. We get to take that into what we're going into, right? So
Mm.
as much as we're starting as beginners, there's a level or a part of this where we're still not beginners, because we have so much more, experiential knowledge and wisdom, and skills maybe that we didn't have before.
That's such a great point. And you and I have not talked about this until this very moment, because that's how I felt, is that I am technically, and in a 30 some odd year, I'm an expert communicator. But I was an expert communicator with technology of way back when, right?
Mhm.
When people turned on the 6 o'clock news in record numbers, and when that was the way to communicate. So the tools have now changed.
Mhm.
But what you've helped me to do, just to speak personally, is to have confidence that I have a base, right?
Mhm.
I have a base of how humans react to information and the importance of the truth, as I sit here in the United States. Uh, so I have a base, but I didn't know which tools to bring forward with me, which
Mhm.
ones were relevant to my dream of being a full-time traveler and working wherever I am as a digital nomad. And I'm interested in your coaching with other people, because I only know about my experience. If that is a really important part of the next dream, is to figure out what you already have in your suitcase that you can take on that trip.
1,000%, right? Because I think there's a part of you, I want to say, so if we're talking career wise, or for me it was with my business, there was part of me that knew that what I was doing at the moment wasn't what I wanted to be doing, and maybe there was elements of what I was doing before that I'd love to expand on, right? And so, yeah, there definitely is, when you're going through the process of figuring out what it is that you want to do, you're taking a look at your life as it is right now. What are the things that excite you? What are the things that move you? What are your core values? What do you want to invite more of into your life, right? And all of that stuff is going to be based on who you are now and based on skills that you already possess. Because when you were trying to do this way back when, you didn't have all of those skills, right? You
Oh, I
didn't.
still don't have all of the skills.
Oh, listen, but here's the thing, you have different skills. When you started out in journalism, right, you didn't have the skills that you do now at this end of the journey, right? So now you get to go through that whole history of everything that you did in journalism. And like you said, pick and choose what works and what you need to bring with you into this next thing, right? So that's definitely part of the process. It's like, where are my strengths? What do I want to invite more of into my life? What am I good at? What do I hate? Because Lord of mercy, you could have done a lot of whatever that you never want to touch again from your previous career. So we're not bringing that with us into this next phase of life.
Yeah, I hope in this next phase of life that part of my job is not to go see crime scenes and dead bodies. That's not good for my own mental health anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
Not that
yeah.
it was then, but we didn't talk about mental health in the 90s, right? So yeah, but I also have the benefit of being older than the two of you by more than a decade, is that also life is short. I mean, when you're hit by a car, your life can get really clear really fast.
Mhm.
And quite honestly, that helped in the what do I want to do with the rest of my life? But I didn't think about it in terms of picking out what parts I did love and want
Yeah,
to take with me on this trip,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
So, Kelly, like when you coach people, how do you go about it? Do you use any sorts of frameworks that you've designed, anything like that, or do you do it more intuitively? And also, like, how do you keep Kimothy on track? Like that's just a personal question between the two of us.
Uh, um, so I'm gonna say it's a mix of both. Like the framework that I have created, the pivot framework, was really there because I do operate, I'm gonna say intuitively. Like anytime that we go into sessions, it's really like what comes up for the person, right? Like, and that's how, to me, that's what coaching is supposed to be. It is what's coming up for you right here, right now, and how do we work through this? What mindset shifts do we need to work through, right? What's been a challenge? How can we work around it? But at the same time, I did want to create a framework so that at least there was some structure in there, for anybody who was coming through to know, okay, this is where we're at, right? I think in some ways you've got to make things duplicatable, you got to make things scalable, right?
Hmm.
So that the results that you're able to help people achieve, are consistent, right? So yeah, the pivot framework that I came up with is really, it's pause, identify, visualize your options, organize, and then thrive, right? And so these are all the different kind of phases of going through your pivot, your change in life. And I think, like, if people can see a plan in front of them, it just makes it that much easier to go through it. The sessions will still be intuitive, but at least we know where we're at, and when we need to recalibrate, we know exactly what phase of the process that we're in.
Mhm.
And how important is vulnerability? Because, Amy's not joking entirely. I'm hard to keep on track. But
I was
what,
really worried about what you were gonna say there.
I saw that
yeah,
hesitation, like, yeah.
yeah, I'm not coming home to Canada now. But and this is just for me, in with both of you, is vulnerability,
Mhm.
right? Is that was not part of my previous life. And I've spoken to other women who, in order to ask for help, in order to get a coach, in order to um, be able to say to a business partner like Amy, there are certain things I'm really not good at.
Mhm.
And you're going to have to remind me, or you're going to have to put guardrails up, or don't let me have the password to that account. So, how important for other people, because I only know about me, is vulnerability to a pivot process?
Oh, I mean, I think vulnerability is, I'm going to say it's baked in, right? Because to ask for
Mm.
help when you want to make a big change like that, because it's a whole identity shift that you're going through as well, right?
Yeah.
And so really, if you've gotten to a point where you're talking to a coach about a change that you want to make, the vulnerability is already there to some extent, because it is hard, like you said, to ask for help, or even just to realize that, like, I am doing something I don't want to be doing, and I need to make a change, right? That can weigh very heavily on you. But I think also going through the coaching process, you will not get far if you're not vulnerable, right? It's all about being honest. And if you're trying to get from a place of feeling very disconnected and misaligned, guess what? You're going to have to get honest with yourself on what is feeling disconnected, what is feeling misaligned, what would feel more aligned. Because if you want to create a life that feels good to you, you got to know what that is, and you got to be really honest with yourself on what that looks like. The only way to get there and to really feel it, own it, embody it, is to be as vulnerable and honest as possible.
And Amy, we know some people don't want to go on your new path with you, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I have a question that's going to come off as humorous because that's how I deal with life. But in all serious,
Mm-hmm.
would you recommend or not recommend people blow up everything at the same time? Like personal, work, interpersonal, any of that. How do you feel about that? Is it like just light the match and run and figure it out? Or like because everything is so intertwined, and once one domino falls, you just might be running for a bit.
Right. I think that's a case by case situation. There are some times that you absolutely will need to just blow it all up and go, right? Because there kind of is no easy way to extricate yourself from whatever this life was, right? I think there are times where you really don't need to blow it up, right? And maybe for you personally, taking, like, having that transition period, creating that safety and security for yourself is what you need. So, you know what I mean? Like, taking that a little bit more slowly is probably better for somebody who needs the safety and security and to, like, figure things out. But there could be a person who, I don't know, who just, like, they just need to get the heck out. Do you know what I mean? Um, I'm thinking back to a conversation that I had with somebody the other day, and the analogy was they've been living in a situation where the waves, like, they've been riding the waves, they've been small waves this whole time, right? And so it's just become, those small waves have just kind of become status quo in their lives. But there's one action that I think that they could make, and it would be a big wave, right? But that wave would have been done, over, dealt with X amount of years ago, had they just, you know what I mean? Like, just rip the bandage off, blew it up, and go. At least we're past it. But now they've spent X amount of years riding these little waves because they're afraid of the big one, right? So I
Yeah.
definitely think it is kind of a case by case basis, and you'll know, or we will figure out through the process that, like, listen, we just need to get out. We need to wash hands, get out, right? So,
Yeah, as a blow it up kind of gal, uh, I can say that, and I don't know if this is part of your coaching, but I can say it's also important to find the people in your life who are okay with this a radical change, right?
yeah.
And that's not going to be everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody might think that, you need more mental health support than you're already getting. And I've been very open on this podcast that, you know, I see a therapist on a semi-regular basis for all kinds of things like trauma and stuff like that related to the accident. But that is, you're going to lose some people who do not, you're going to lose some people who I think find your journey scary
Mhm,
because it may hold a mirror up to something in them that wants to change.
mhm.
Uh, Tell me I'm not the only person that sees blowing up like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you think about it, if you're about to blow up your life, or whether you're gonna do the blow up path or you're gonna do the
Wave.
transition path, right? The thing is that you are somebody who is now honoring yourself, right? The person that they knew from beforehand, like they knew what to do with that person fit in with their lives. Um, yeah, that person fit in with their lives that way. When you decide that you're going to make a big change, you are, I almost want to say fundamentally changing yourself, right? Because you're honoring yourself. You're going to feel different. You're going to act different. You're like everything about you is going to be different. And so I think people do get a little bit scared of who's this person going to be on the other side. But on the other hand of that is, do you really want to bring people with you that can't accept who this new version of yourself is, who this more aligned, happier version of yourself is? Do you want to keep the people who want to keep you trapped in being that version of self, right? Because you're trying to step into more of who you are. And I mean, this makes me think of when I was in the salon world. You know, we would, when my employees would get when my employees would get a promotion, you know, everybody gets scared about their promotion because their prices go up, their commission goes up. So they're happy about that, but their prices go up, which means now you got to tell these existing clients that have been with you for X amount of time that, hey, my prices are going up for all these services. And the one thing that we always had to tell everybody is that, listen, you will lose probably 10% of the people, the 10% of the clientele that you had, because they're used to you at this price. They're used to you this way. Now, you know, you're gonna level up. You've, you know, kind of become somebody different. You're doing things a little bit differently, but letting go of that 10%, letting go of those people allows you now to invite people who are more aligned with you as you are right here, right now, right? So I think when you take that analogy into life, yeah, you're going to lose some people, but maybe those people weren't your people, or those people were for you when you were being quote unquote dishonest with yourself, right? When you weren't happy with yourself. You want people around you who are going to be with you when you are your happiest and best self, and living a life that you love, because those people are going to enjoy the heck out of life with you, right? So
Or even when like you were playing small, really. I think
yeah.
that comes into a lot. Like I coach as well, I business coach.
Mhm.
And it's like a lot of people, including myself at times, like you're playing really small.
Yeah.
And like I've just recently kind of stated, like I'm just going to take up more room in this world. I don't
Yeah.
know what that looks like at the moment, but like I've come to that realization that it's like, yeah, I need to do something myself.
Yeah.
Like I need to move around because this is not it. It's like you come from building all of the stuff and that becomes your comfort zone. But then what do you do when your comfort zone is not comfortable anymore?
Right. Right.
Right. And so like with all the folks that you talk to, what kind of tips or direction do you give folks that are just like, I kind of maybe have another dream. I'm not really sure about what it is. I can kind of see it over here. Like, how do I get there? What do I do? Do you have any tips for those people that are just dipping their toe at the moment to see whether they are a transitional person or a blow up shit person?
Mhm. Um, you know what? I think it's exactly what you said. You dip your toe, right? You start the process. You won't really know until you start moving in the direction if it's what you want to do. Um, yeah, if it's what you want to do, and I'm going to say how quickly you need to do it, right? Like, depending on your life situation,
Yeah.
um, yeah, you might need to move a little bit faster. Um, yeah, you might need to move a little bit faster, but I think until you have taken some steps forward to get some idea of what it is that you have to do, like what are the next steps, it's going to be hard to kind of motivate yourself. Like you're gonna stay stuck, right? It to me, I always say it's always about taking the first next step, right? Forget seeing the whole path, and figuring out if like necessarily figuring out whether I have to like blow it up or, transition. What's the first thing I need to do? The first step I need to take to get me to this place that I want to be. And then once you've taken that step, okay, well, what's the next first step that you got to take, right? And you just keep going that way, and your whole path will reveal itself. But until you kind of have I want to say the guts, the balls, the cojones, whatever, the ovaries to go and take the step, you're gonna feel stuck. So
I think it
Well,
also just gets, sorry, Kim, I just, to add to that though, I think it just gets more uncomfortable when you've got to a point where you're like, this isn't quite fitting. The longer you kind of don't do something about it, the more uncomfortable it gets, and your comfort zone is
absolutely.
no longer your comfort zone anymore.
Absolutely. Life, I think, will force you out at some point. And I think that's where I got to in my own journey. Like, I'm going to say for at least a good 2 years, I was thinking, like, I'd love to do something else. Like, this isn't, I had the little inklings back there that owning the salon wasn't where I wanted to be, but I kept pushing, 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 because I felt like this is what I need to do. And if I just do this next thing,
mhm.
everything will turn around. And okay, well, it worked a little bit or it didn't work. And okay, well, let me try the next thing. And it just got to a point where everything was building so much and there was so much pressure that I just had to make a dang change. Right. And so, I want to say as I'm sitting here, having this conversation with you guys, I'm like, did I blow it up or did I transition? I think I did a little bit of both because I definitely I got out of a lease 2 years early, right? I had to let go of all the staff. I had to, make some financial moves. Like there were so many different things that I had to do right here, right now. And if I didn't do this thing right here, right now, then I wouldn't even get to the point where I can be in the transition phase where I'm building up the coaching and I'm, doing the smaller salon part, right? So I feel like I did a little bit of both in there, but yeah.
And I think that's so important because, even though I put myself in the blow up column, I don't want people listening to this to think it's one or the other
Mm-hmm.
because of COVID, and that was
Mm-hmm.
before the accident. I knew I wanted a camping trailer and got one, and it was also in the car accident, unfortunately. But research for me was the liberating factor.
Mm-hmm.
Is I did a ton of research while I was rehabilitating from my more serious injuries, you know, YouTube University, can you do this? Reading books, looking up articles that people had written on being a digital nomad. And that was empowering to find the information I needed in order to blow up. So I guess I'm kind of a wave person too, because there was definitely a preparation period of I am going to be unhoused
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to travel full time. How do I make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm hoping that the people listening to this know it doesn't have to be column A or column B. There can be a preparation period that empowers you for the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you're thinking about blowing it up while using this term, it doesn't have to be a large and it doesn't have to be all. It could be just
Yeah.
a piece that is
Yeah.
like really not serving you. And you're just, I'm done with this and I'm not going to fight this piece anymore. I'll blow that piece up and then I'll transition with the other pieces. I think
Yeah.
like there's any amount of that.
And a lot of consideration for the people that you love. Obviously, I'm
Mhm.
not in a relationship, so I didn't have to worry about shrapnel hitting other people. It was um, uh, a freedom moment. After a second divorce. So, I don't thrive relationship. So that was also a freeing moment for me, is that this gets to be my life now. And um, whether it's, I mean, to Amy's point, whether it's the small thing that might be sort of the incendiary device to kind of test the system a little bit, I'm going to blow up this part that's really making me unhappy,
Right.
as sort of laying the territory for what might come next.
Right.
And, uh, my experience with you is, with both of you, Amy, I tease a lot more about this, is that, okay, I'm going to learn how to do YouTube.
Hmm.
Well, 850, or sorry, 805 people later, I didn't think anybody was going to follow a YouTube channel. It was to document the stuff I wanted for the book that I'm
Hmm.
eventually going to write about people who are unhoused. And I had to learn, I didn't know 7 months ago, as you both know, how to shoot, how to edit, how to post, how to do any of that. So increments toward the big dream are also incredibly valuable, and wins. It helps your spirit when you can learn a new task and you're actually pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you ask Amy to do it.
What are friends for?
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm your people. We already figured this out.
Exactly. We know. We know. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, Amy, I thought you had a question and it was my turn to stop talking, but I have more if you want to take a moment to think about how I ask you to do things.
How about her? If there's something on the top of your tongue.
Okay, and and just for backgrounds, Kelly and I first met in the Gatineau Casino parking lot, because I was researching the fact that a lot of van lifers sleep in casino parking lots, and I was going to take a drive and check it out, and so we met there. And one of the things that really won me over, and I'm not sure I've told you this, is curiosity.
Hmm.
And when you're about to be 57 years old, you sometimes think there's nothing new to challenge and be curious about. And curiosity for me has been um, such an inspiration, is that, if you want to know what it's like to camp in Sedona, if that's important to you, you can do it. But to become curious in other things, I think is really healthy for the brain,
Hmm.
you
Absolutely.
know? And is that just this client of yours, or is that something you see in other clients?
No, I think it's a common thing, right? Like, to go through this process, you have to be curious, because you are there's so many different options of different things that you could be doing in the world. There's so many different paths that you can take, right? So if you're not curious and you're not out there exploring and trying to figure out what that thing is that connects with you, well, I feel like you're just going to end up exactly where you were before, right? Because that's what you know, right? And curiosity is all about learning about what else is out there, the things that you don't know, right? And so to invite something new into your life, well, guess what? You're going to have to go and search and play and explore all these different options. And I think through that curiosity and through exploring, through playing, we can have an idea, I think, when we are starting out, starting to build the plan. Like in the very beginning, you can have an idea of what it is that you want to do. And through the process, you will definitely start working towards that. But I think that life happens, because you're curious, because you're out there exploring, you start to learn different things, and then something else opens up for you that's even a little bit more aligned than what you thought, right? But if you're not exploring, like I said, you just stay stuck in what it is that you have been doing.
And Amy, one of the things that I've talked to Kelly about is that I have a very clear memory of when I was a little girl and I was at summer camp and I was running through the woods barefoot and probably my hair hasn't changed much in all these years, just wild and crazy. And I have this very clear memory of freedom. Because it was the first time I was old enough at the summer camp I went to go to the bathrooms by myself early in the morning when all the other kids were sleeping. And I remember the smells of the leaves and everything. And uh, what that curiosity for me has done is almost bring me back to myself. And one of our previous guests talked about coming home to yourself. And
Mhm.
I've been thinking about that since we did that podcast. And you have to kind of go back into yourself to find out what you're truly passionate about, because the world has been a little hard on us.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the phases that we go through is, well, I'll talk about two of them. So pause and identify. So pause is really just giving
Oh.
yourself the opportunity to slow the flip down, right? You're able to just slow down, take a minute, give yourself some time to get clarity, to process, like whatever that looks like, however that looks like for you. Just being able to slow down will allow for I think for your mind to get just very clear, right? Allows you to let your mind to get clear and explore. But the second part with identify is all about what are your core values. And I think that, for me and for what I've seen with people going through my programs, a lot of the times, like all the goals, all the things that we're working towards is all based on, society's success metrics, what our family says that we should be doing, what our industry says that we should be doing, all that kind of stuff. And so I think when you're able to go within, when you've taken that time to pause, go within and explore what your values are based on who you are right here, right now, in this moment. A lot of the times, I think it will kind of bring you back to the core of you, because part of the process is like, oh, something that I did a lot was like I went out and bought pencil crayons and a sketchbook, and I just sit there and color. Do you know what I mean? And I bought clay and started playing with that. So a lot of it is going back to you and what makes you happy, what centers you, what feels good. Again, and I feel like I've used this word a lot, but what aligns with you. And so I think when you think about it, when you go through the process, there's a lot of childhood you that you do come home to. That is what you're trying to kind of get back to and experience a little bit more of in life, because we were all, I think, a little bit freer and more open and, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, just happier, lighter when we were younger, doing the things that we like. So how do I recreate that now or get back to that feeling now with whatever it is that I'm going to do moving forward?
And I know we're almost out of time, and Amy's the timekeeper, but you know, let me express gratitude for the two of you, because as somebody who's shockingly close to 60, I have the benefit of aging, and I call it a benefit of aging with a big milestone a couple years away, because time isn't guaranteed, right? And what better time than now, whatever that is for you,
Mhm.
in terms of the now, to set goals, brand new goals. But I just have discovered that it actually keeps bringing me back to who I was meant to be.
Mhm.
And the traveler, the kid running with her wild hair in the wind and stuff like that. But I'm very grateful for the two of you, because again, I lost some people along the way who they didn't die. Thankfully, they just aren't kind of in sync with this version, and the two of you have been rock solid, and I'm very grateful.
Well, I'm grateful that you've allowed me to go through this whole process. It's been really, really neat. I think watching you learn everything that you have, jumping on the calls every week, and you're like, oh, this is where I am now, and this is what I've got going on, right? And seeing seeing and hearing the excitement from you when you've learned a new skill or you know what I mean? Like this new video has come out and people are responding to it. And it's because of something that you learned and something that you picked up along the way. So I think it's been really fun.
Yeah.
I gotta know, Kelly. Does she talk about me?
Well, that's coach client privileged information.
Yeah,
God.
it's only in the respect of, oh my God, Amy needs me to learn how to do this, you know.
Oh dear. Well, I will take the opportunity to thank you, Kelly, for coming on. Very insightful. Looking forward to sharing your book with our listeners. And looking forward to seeing what folks have to say about this life transition, about whether you blow it up or whether you transition and how people are feeling about it. Because I do agree, I think there's a lot of us right now that are just kind of sitting in there. And one of the things that when you were talking just now, kind of brings me back to stuff that I've dealt with and stuff that other people have dealt with is that the inner child stuff. So whether it's either healing the inner child or expressing the inner child or healing the inner child to express the inner child, I think
Right.
all of us are just coming back to that inner child to be, get a better footing and kind of just like take a new, fresh, deep breath
Absolutely.
and see how we can service it a bit better. So thank you so much for coming on. To our viewers and listeners, thank you for hanging out with us today and watching Kimothy drink that giant coffee in front of us the
I
size of
know,
a
but we were
bed.
talking, there's method to my madness. We were talking about Pivot, and this is my friend's mug, my big,
Oh, dear.
huge, like Central Perk friend's mug.
Love it.
Well, thanks very much. And like, subscribe, and notify on YouTube to hear more from us and to help support this cause. And we will see you next week on the Inner Shift podcast.